Have you ever sat in silence, wondering why it hurts so much? Why life so full of beauty can also be a battlefield of silent suffering? Here's a truth no one teaches us when we're young. Suffering is not punishment, it's initiation. It doesn't come to destroy you, it comes to reveal you. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." And he was right, because nothing awakens us more than the ache we can't ignore. Not the books, not the advice, not even love. Pain opens a door that comfort keeps shut. And yet, we rarely talk about this. We whisper about our wounds. We hide them beneath laughter, beneath busyness, beneath distractions. But beneath all of that, there's something sacred unfolding, something trying to emerge. This chapter is not for those who have it all figured out. It's for the ones crying in their car, for the ones who wake up with heaviness in their chest, for the ones who look around and wonder if they'll ever feel like themselves again. You are not broken, you are breaking open. Pain strips away illusions. It peels off the layers we built to survive the masks, the roles, the false smiles. It rips through denial with a blade so sharp we're left raw, shaking, vulnerable. But in that state, something begins, something real. You're not being punished, you're being shown. Pain is a teacher no one invites but everyone remembers. It speaks the truth others are too afraid to say, and when it comes, it doesn't knock, it crashes. But its arrival marks the beginning of your transformation. It's easy to think you're alone, but you're not. Countless others have walked through that same darkness, doubting they'd make it out, and still they did, not untouched, but reborn. Because pain, if you allow it, doesn't just scar you, it sculpts you. So if you're in the middle of the fire, stay with it, breathe, listen. You may not see it yet, but this is your becoming. What hurts today may one day become the most powerful part of your story. You're not dying, you're awakening. Let's be honest, pain terrifies us. The moment it shows up, we reach for anything to numb it. The screen, the drink, the smile we've learned to fake. We scroll, we swallow, we shut down. Because facing what hurts means opening a door we've kept locked for far too long. And who can blame us? We've been taught that pain is the enemy, that if we hurt, something must be wrong. But what if that's not true? What if pain isn't trying to destroy us but reveal what we've been avoiding? Here's the paradox. The more we resist suffering, the more power it gains. The more we bury it, the louder it screams from underneath. And eventually, it finds a way to rise. Through burnout, through illness, through that sudden breakdown we didn't see coming. Carl Jung believed that what we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fate, and that's exactly what happens with our pain. We push it away, and it finds another door in. It wears new masks. It speaks in anxiety, in rage, in numbness, and we wonder why we're always running. But running only stretches the distance between who we are and who we could become. Pain doesn't want to punish you, it wants to wake you up. It wants to pull you closer to your own truth. But it can't do that if you keep numbing, silencing, ignoring. We live in a world that celebrates distraction. It teaches us to fix the surface and ignore the soul. But healing doesn't happen on the surface. It happens when we sit with the H, when we dare to ask what it's trying to teach us. And yes, it's hard to sit in stillness, to feel what we've been avoiding, to admit what we've been hiding. But only in that stillness do we finally hear the message beneath the noise. You are ready. Ready to stop running, ready to stop pretending, ready to let go of who you were pretending to be, so you can meet the version of yourself who's been waiting behind the pain. Stop fearing your wounds. They are sacred, and they only scream because they're desperate to be heard. This isn't the end. This is the beginning of your return to truth, to presence, to yourself. There comes a moment in every life when pain pushes so deeply you can no longer hide. That's not failure, it's the moment the shadow wakes up. Carl Jung called it the shadow, everything we repress, reject, deny. The parts of us we've been told are too much, too angry, too broken. We bury them because we think it's safer that way. But the truth is, what we hide never disappears. It waits. And pain is how it calls us back. When you suffer, you meet the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, the rage that simmers beneath your smile, the guilt that still whispers in quiet moments, the shame you tried to outrun for years. Suddenly, it's all there, undeniable, raw, staring straight at you. And it's terrifying. But here's what no one tells you. That moment is sacred, because when the shadow comes into view, it's not trying to destroy you, it's trying to reintegrate you. You're not broken, you're fragmented. And the pain is your invitation to bring all those pieces home. We've been taught to fear the shadow, to lock it up and throw away the key. But that's not healing, that's repression. And what we repress, we eventually become a slave to. Jung warned us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Think about that. How many times have you repeated the same pattern, the same mistake, the same kind of heartbreak and wondered why? It wasn't bad luck. It was the shadow, trying again and again to be seen. Pain doesn't come to punish you, it comes to show you the places still bleeding beneath your armor. And when you dare to look, when you finally stop running, you begin to see not a monster, but a wounded part of you that's always wanted to be loved. The shadow isn't evil, it's exiled, and pain is the key that unlocks the door back to it. So next time it hurts, ask yourself, what have I been afraid to feel? What have I denied too long? Because that is where your healing begins, in the dark, with what you thought you'd never face. We all want growth, but rarely do we talk about what it actually requires. Not comfort, not ease, not a perfect life. Real growth begins when the false self starts to fall away, when suffering strips you of your plans, your masks, your certainty, and all that's left is you, standing bare before the truth. Pain is a portal, but only if you walk through it. It doesn't feel like that when you're in it. In the middle of the breakdown, the silence, the grief, it feels like life is unraveling, and in a way, it is. But maybe that unraveling is exactly what was needed. Maybe you weren't breaking down. Maybe you were breaking through. We're taught to seek answers outside of ourselves. Advice, validation, distraction. But suffering brings you back inward. It silences the outside world so you can hear your own soul. The one you've been ignoring. The one that's been whispering truths beneath the noise of who you were trying to be. Carl Jung wrote that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. But suffering gives you no other option. It tears the curtain down. It forces you to sit in your own presence and ask the questions you've avoided for years. Who am I really? What matters, truly? What was I living for before all this? And the answers don't come in words, they come in stillness. In the moments you stop trying to hold everything together and let it all fall. That's when you begin to meet the most authentic version of yourself, the one who exists beneath the roles, beneath the people-pleasing, beneath the performance. This version of you doesn't need fixing. It needs remembering. Pain is not a detour. It's the doorway to yourself. And though it feels like destruction, what it's really doing is carving out space for something real, something solid, something you. So don't rush your healing. Let the fire burn what it must. On the other side of this, you won't just be healed, you'll be transformed. And transformation doesn't happen when life feels easy. It happens when you finally realize the self you've been waiting to become was hidden in the very pain you tried to avoid. There's a point in suffering where nothing makes sense anymore. The labels fall away, the plans unravel, the strength you once clung to dissolves, and you're left there bare, broken, exhausted, not knowing how you'll ever get up again. That place, that's emotional rock bottom, and as brutal as it feels, it's not the end. It's the beginning of something sacred. Carl Jung once said, the gold is in the dark. Not in the victories, not in the comfort, not in the surface-level peace, but in the darkness, the despair, the collapse, the night you thought would never end. Because hitting bottom doesn't mean failure. It means there's nowhere left to hide. The ego part of you that's been performing, pretending, perfecting cracks, it can't hold the weight anymore. And that's when something deeper finally gets a voice. The soul. You see, we spend our lives trying to control pain, manage it, outsmart it, but real transformation doesn't happen through control, it happens through surrender. And rock bottom, that's full surrender. You can't fake it, you can't rush it. You just fall, and in that fall, everything false burns away. The masks, the roles, the need to be liked, the stories that kept you small. And what remains isn't weakness. It's truth. It's the raw, unedited version of you finally emerging. Not the version shaped by expectation, but the one shaped by inner knowing. This is the point of alchemy, where lead turns to gold, where pain becomes purpose, where suffering becomes the soil for rebirth. You may not see it yet, that's okay. Rock bottom isn't where you find clarity. It's where you stop running long enough for clarity to find you. So if you're in the dark, don't rush to escape it. Sit with it, feel it, let it break what no longer serves. Because pain doesn't just break you down, it breaks you open. And from that opening, your real life begins. There's a moment after loss when everything stands still. You look around and nothing feels the summer, not the walls, not the air, not even yourself. Something has left, and something in you has died with it. Whether it's the loss of a person, a role, a dream, or an identity you clung to for years, grief is the earthquake that cracks your soul open. But grief isn't just an ending, it's a threshold. When something or someone leaves your life, it doesn't just take, it also clears. It scrapes away illusions. It removes what you thought you couldn't live without, and forces you to look at what's real, what remains. And sometimes, painfully, the only thing left is you, just you. But that is where the rebirth begins. We think grief is about losing them, or it, or what could have been, but underneath what we're really mourning is the version of ourselves that was attached to that story. We're grieving the expectations, the hopes, the certainty, the illusion of permanence, and that illusion had to die so truth could take its place. Carl Jung said, "Only the wounded physician heals." Grief wounds you in ways no one else can see, but it also opens the door to something deeper than happiness, depth, clarity, freedom. Because once you've lost what you thought defined you, you become free to ask the question, who am I now, without the mask, without the role, without the weight of the past? Grief is brutal, but it's honest. It doesn't lie. It doesn't let you pretend. It takes you to the root of your attachments and says, look, this was never truly yours. You were borrowing it. Now, let's find what's eternal. You don't come out of grief the same. You come out stripped, sharpened, more present, less willing to lie to yourself. And that's the quiet miracle of loss. It leaves you empty so you can finally become full. It takes so you can finally see what was never real. And in that seeing, a truer you is born. After the storm comes the silence. Not the silence of peace, at first, but the silence of absence, of stillness so deep it almost feels unbearable. You reach for noise, conversation, distraction, routine, but none of it fits anymore. Everything feels too loud, too artificial, so slowly, almost reluctantly, you withdraw. And that withdrawal, that silence, it's not emptiness, it's preparation. We think healing looks like doing, reading, processing, journaling, working through it. But sometimes healing means sitting still. It means not knowing, not fixing, just being. Letting the silence echo through the parts of you that used to be filled with noise. Carl Jung said, who looks outside, dreams, who looks inside, awakens, and nothing turns you inward faster than pain. Nothing silences the outer world like a soul that's gone quiet inside. When you stop filling the space, something sacred happens. You begin to hear yourself again. Not the version of you that pleases or performs, but the one that's been waiting in the shadows, whispering beneath the chaos. In silence, truth has room to rise. Yes, it's uncomfortable. The mind will scream. It will beg you to scroll, to numb, to escape. But if you can stay, if you can breathe and listen, you'll hear something deeper, your own voice. Your soul, the part of you that never needed fixing, just listening. Healing doesn't always speak in words. Sometimes it arrives in the way sunlight touches your skin, in the tears that come for no reason, in the sudden clarity of a quiet moment that says, you're not who you used to be and that's okay. Silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of space. The space where you stop pretending, the space where you begin to feel again, to remember. So if you've withdrawn, if you've gone quiet, if your world feels still good, that's not a sign of failure, that's the soil of rebirth. Because only when the noise fades can the soul finally speak. There's a moment in suffering when everyone seems distant, even those you love most. Conversations feel hollow, presence feels absent. and you start to wonder if anyone can truly understand what's happening inside you. That's not loneliness. That's the beginning of sacred solitude. We've been conditioned to fear being alone, to equate it with failure, sadness, exile. But what if isolation isn't a punishment, but a divine invitation? Pain separates us not to punish, but to prepare. It removes the noise, the crowds, the opinions, the expectations, so we can finally hear our own voice. Because healing doesn't happen in the middle of applause. It happens in the quiet, in the ache, in the space no one else sees. Loneliness whispers, "You're forgotten," but solitude whispers something else. "You're remembering." Carl Jung believed that individuation, the journey to becoming your true self, can only happen when you turn inward. And sometimes life isolates you not because you're weak, but because you're ready. Ready to stop living through others, ready to finally come home to yourself. And yes, it's uncomfortable, being alone with your thoughts, sitting with your wounds, feeling everything rise to the surface. But that silence, that solitude, that's where clarity is born, that's where illusions fall, that's where you return. Because when there's no one left to impress, no one left to perform for, you begin to ask, what do I really want? Who am I when I'm not needed? And the answers don't come all at once. They arrive in fragments, in memories, in whispers, in breath. And over time, the ache of loneliness transforms into the peace of solitude. You start to like your own company. You begin to trust your own energy. You realize you were never truly alone. You were just finally with yourself. So, if the world has gone quiet, if you've been pulled inward, let it happen. Don't resist the solitude. Honor it. Because it's not exile, it's a sacred return. There's a kind of pain that changes you forever, not just because it hurts, but because it reveals. It's the pain that drops you to your knees, the kind that makes you question everything, the wound you thought would break you, but instead broke you open. Rumi said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Carl Jung lived that truth. He taught that our deepest pain holds the key to our deepest healing, not in spite of the wound, but because of it. Your suffering is not a dead end. It's a doorway. Every wound carries a message, a lesson, a truth you couldn't have seen any other way. And when you dare to face it, not numb it, not deny it, you realize the wound isn't the enemy. It's the passage. Because pain exposes, it reveals where you were disconnected, it shows you where you abandoned yourself, it uncovers the patterns you kept repeating in silence. And most of all, it softens you, not in weakness, but in wisdom. You start to see others differently, you listen more deeply, you love more gently. Why? Because the wound humbled you, it cracked the ego, it burned away the pride, it showed you what truly matters. And in that place, light begins to rise. Not flashy, not loud, but steady, from within. Your pain is not your identity, it's your initiation. It doesn't mark you as broken, it marks you as awake. Because you don't really know who you are until something breaks you open. And when it does, you don't just survive, you begin to see. You see the world more clearly. You feel life more deeply. You walk through the world less afraid. Not because you haven't been wounded, but because you've met your wounds and stayed. So the next time the pain hits, don't shut it out. Ask it what it came to teach. Because somewhere inside that wound is your next becoming. Not despite the pain, but because of it. There's a strange kind of déjà vu that comes with suffering, the way certain pain returns wearing a different face, in a new situation, with new names, but the same wound. And you wonder, why is this happening again? The truth is hard to swallow, but essential. Pain repeats until it teaches. Carl Jung taught us that what remains unconscious controls our life, and we call it fate. But often, it's not fate. It's a pattern, a loop, a cycle quietly repeating itself until we finally see it. The toxic partner that feels familiar, the habit that keeps stealing our peace, the belief that whispers, "You're not enough." These aren't accidents, they're echoes. And they echo until we listen. Your pain is intelligent. It's trying to show you the blueprint you're living by, one that maybe isn't yours, one you inherited, one you were conditioned into, but not one you have to keep carrying. Suffering is the flashlight. It shines directly on the thoughts, relationships, and behaviors that are quietly sabotaging you, and the longer you ignore the pattern, the louder it becomes. This is not punishment. This is awakening. Every repeated pain is an invitation. Look closer, ask deeper, break free. Because the moment you see the pattern, really see it, not justify it, not excuse it, you begin to choose differently. You stop running on autopilot. You take the wheel of your life back. And yes, breaking a pattern is hard. It means disappointing people who benefit from your old behavior. It means saying no to the familiar. It means becoming someone who chooses peace over chaos, clarity over comfort. But that's the cost of freedom. And pain is the price of seeing clearly. So the next time life puts you in the same place, with the same ache, pause, breathe, look around. Ask yourself, what is this pain trying to teach me that I refused to learn last time? Because once you see the pattern, you're no longer trapped in it. You're free to rewrite the story. You can't heal what you won't name. That's the quiet truth most people avoid. We say we're tired, stressed, just going through a lot. But beneath those vague phrases often lives something much sharper: grief, betrayal, rejection, abandonment. And as long as we keep it vague, we keep it powerful. Because what remains unnamed remains in control. Carl Jung knew this. He understood that awareness is the first step to transformation, that the moment you put words to what you feel, you begin to loosen its grip. When you say, "I feel unloved," "I feel forgotten," "I feel like I don't matter," you're not collapsing, you're reclaiming power. Because now, instead of pain controlling you from the shadows, you're facing it, you're naming it. You're choosing to bring light to the wound that's been silently shaping your decisions, your relationships, your sense of worth. Naming what hurts doesn't make you weak. It makes you honest. And honesty is the soil where real healing grows. We live in a world that fears vulnerability, that rewards pretending, that teaches us to say, "I'm fine," when we're not even close to fine. But that lie keeps us stuck, numb, disconnected. Naming the pain doesn't mean wallowing. It means acknowledging. And in that act of acknowledgement, something powerful shifts. You realize you're not crazy, you're not broken, you're responding to something that hurt. And now, finally, you're giving it a name so it can stop living as a silent weight on your soul. So ask yourself, what am I really feeling? What am I really carrying? Then say it out loud, write it down, speak it to someone who can hold it with you. Because in naming your pain, you don't just describe it. You begin to unchain yourself from it. This is how healing begins, not with pretending everything is okay, but with the quiet courage to say what isn't. There comes a point on the healing path when the excuses fade, when blaming the past, the people, the pain no longer holds power, when you realize no one is coming to save you. And strangely, that realization isn't tragic. It's liberating. You are your own healer. Carl Jung called it individuation, the path of becoming whole, not perfect, not fixed, whole. And wholeness doesn't come from what others do for you. It comes from the moment you choose to own every piece of your experience, the light, the dark, the parts you ran from, the parts you resented. Healing isn't about finding someone to make it all better. It's about turning inward and saying, "This is mine, and I choose to grow from it." That's emotional sovereignty. It's the sacred act of no longer outsourcing your worth, your peace, your sense of safety. It's deciding, day by day, to stop letting your wounds run the show and instead to become the one who holds them. Yes, others may have hurt you. Yes, your past might carry deep betrayal, abandonment, trauma. But your healing? That part is yours alone. And no, it's not fair. But it's real. And what's real can be transformed. Because the moment you stop waiting for closure from those who hurt you, the moment you stop expecting the world to understand you, is the moment you begin to stand in your own power. You become the one who validates your pain, the one who offers comfort when it resurfaces, the one who says, "Even though this hurt me, I refuse to let it define me." You don't have to be fully healed to be whole. You just have to own your path. And the more you do, the more life begins to shift, not because everything outside changes, but because you do. Sovereignty isn't loud. It's not prideful. It's quiet, steady, rooted. It's the voice inside that says, I know who I am, and I know what I need, and I can give it to myself. That's the path. Not back to who you were, but forward to who you were always meant to be. There's a version of you still frozen in that moment of pain. The day it all fell apart. The night you cried in silence. The time you were betrayed, abandoned, overlooked, broken. And maybe you've spent years trying to get away from that version of yourself, judging her, criticizing her, pretending she didn't exist. But here's the truth. You can't heal by hating the self that broke. You heal by returning to her. By kneeling beside her and saying, I see you now, and I'm sorry you had to go through that alone. This is what reparenting means. Not just nurturing your inner child, but extending compassion to every version of you who suffered without the tools, without the voice, without the support. Not to justify what happened, but to finally acknowledge it. Carl Jung taught that integration is the path to wholeness. And integration requires inclusion, not erasure. That means including the you who didn't know better, the you who stayed too long, the you who blamed herself, the you who acted out of fear, out of trauma, out of survival. She doesn't need your judgment. She needs your love, your understanding, your presence, because the pain didn't break you. The absence of self-compassion did. When you revisit those old moments, not to relive them, but to witness them, something powerful happens. You become the safe space you never had. You offer the words no one else spoke. You rewrite the memory by returning with kindness. And that changes everything. Because healing isn't a straight line, it's a circle, a journey inward, toward the part of you still waiting to be chosen by you. So today, try this. Close your eyes, picture a hurt version of you who suffered. Now, instead of fixing her, instead of shaming her, sit beside her. Tell her, you did your best, and I'm proud of you for surviving. Because you don't need to become someone else to heal. You need to love the one who held it all together until now. We often treat healing like erasure, as if the goal is to become someone untouched, as if pain must be forgotten to prove we've moved on. But real healing doesn't erase. It integrates. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He knew the path to wholeness isn't about cutting away the wounded parts, it's about bringing them home, accepting them, making peace with them. Because your past is not a mistake. It's a map. Every scar tells a story, and every story holds a lesson, a strength, a sacred thread in the tapestry of who you've become. Wholeness doesn't mean smiling through everything. It means standing in the full truth of your experience with the anger, the grief, the mistakes, the resilience, and saying, yes, that was me, and I choose to carry it with compassion. You don't need to be spotless to be worthy. You don't need to forget the pain to be free. In fact, it's your scars that give you depth. It's your broken places that make you wise. And those pieces you once tried to hide, they were never your shame, they were your becoming. To integrate means to stop dividing yourself. Stop separating before and after. Stop disowning the versions of you who had to survive the hard parts. Bring them in, let them sit at the table. They earned that seat. Because every wound you've carried taught you something about strength, about boundaries, about truth. And the moment you stop trying to be whole by subtraction and start choosing wholeness by inclusion, you finally feel peace. Not the peace of forgetting, but the peace of remembering without pain. So let this be your new definition of healing. Not the removal of pain, but the reconciliation with it. Because that's where your power lives, in the parts you thought you had to leave behind, but instead chose to carry with love. You're not here to go back. That version of you before the heartbreak, before the loss, before the unraveling is gone, and that's not a tragedy. That's transformation. Because healing is not about becoming who you used to be. It's about becoming who you were meant to be before the world told you who to be, before fear rewrote your story, before pain made you shrink. This is your rebirth, not into perfection, but into presence. Not into what's expected, but into what's real. You've walked through the fire, you've faced your shadow, you've sat in silence with your pain. And now, From those ashes, something new rises, not untouched, but awakened. This is your invitation. Don't settle for survival. Choose meaning. Choose purpose. Choose becoming. Because the difference between a victim and a healer isn't what happened, it's what you choose to do with it. You can let your past define you, or you can let it refine you. You can repeat the pain, or you can rebuild with it. Carl Jung said it best. I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. So the question now is not what broke you. It's what you're building from here. You've outgrown the need for others to understand. You've stopped waiting for apologies that may never come. You've stopped begging for love in places that only offered conditions. And in the quiet strength of that letting go, a new you was born. A you who doesn't hide. A you who doesn't beg. A you who doesn't need permission to live in your fullness. So walk forward not in spite of your wounds, but with them. Because you are not a victim. You are a creator. And now, finally, you get to choose. Not to forget, but to become. Want to hear more of this? Then click on the video on the right-hand side, which is even crazier.